All right, so we are doing section 2.4, graphing linear inequalities. So the main idea here is that we're graphing lines, but the lines happen to be part of an inequality. So they're not like equations, like y equals 2x plus 3. It might be like y is greater than 2x plus 3, or y is less than or equal to 2x plus 3. So normally, if we get an equation that looks like this, it's a line. It's a normal line, okay? But if I get something that looks like this, so it might either be this, or this, or this, or that, okay? So it can be any one of those four, less than, greater than, less than or equal to, greater than or equal to. This is also a line, but it could be dashed or solid, and then you have to shade it. So there's a lot more that you have to do to these lines, and right now I'll explain all that, okay? But normally graphing an equation is easier because all you do is you graph a line. Like, so for example, for 2x plus 3, 3 is your y-intercept, so I would go up to 3 on my y-axis, and then my slope is 2 over 1, so I go up twice, once over, connect the dots, and I'm done. Here, with the inequalities, the less than, greater than, less than or equal to, or greater than or equal to, I draw my line, but I have to ask myself, should the line be solid or should it be dashed? And then after I figure that out, I'll draw it. So if it's a solid line, it's going to look like a normal line. If it's a dashed line, then I need to put dashes instead of a nice solid line. And then I got to ask myself, which way do I shade it? Okay, so it's going to be shaded above the line or below the line. Okay, so let's talk about that part. Okay, so is it dashed? Let me use a different thing here. Is it dashed or solid? Okay, so that's the first part. Is it dashed or solid? Now, if it says less than or greater than, okay, if you write less than or greater than, the line should be dashed. Okay, it should look something like that. So it says less than or greater than, you end up with a dashed line. If it says less than or equal to or greater than or equal to, it doesn't matter which one, okay? This will result in a solid line, a normal looking line. As long as it says or equal to, it's going to be solid, okay? If it doesn't say or equal to, then it's going to be dashed, okay? So that's the first part. So when you're going to graph this thing, you're going to put your points the way you normally do. You go to your y-intercept, you do your slope, you get 2 points. Once you have those 2 points, you're going to ask yourself the first question, is it dashed or is it solid? Okay, and it's pretty easy to tell. Less than or greater than is dashed. If it says or equal to, solid. Okay, so less than or equal to, greater than or equal to, it is a solid line. Okay, so that's the first part. The second part is, should I shade above or below? Okay, so do I shade above or below? That's the second question you're going to ask yourself. Okay, above or below. So if it says less than or equal to, notice the key term here, less than. Okay, it can be less than or equal to or just less than, but less. Well, less, if you think less of somebody, you look down on them, right? If you think less of somebody, you look down on them. So when I think less than, right, or less than or equal to, I'm thinking down, below, okay? So you're going to shade below. You're going to color in below. All right, now if it says greater than or equal to, that you're going to shade above. Right? If someone is greater than you, you normally tend to look up at them, right? You look up to them. So in this case, greater than or equal to, shade above. Okay? So there's three things you got to do when you're doing these problems. The very first thing is you're going to have to solve for y if it's not already solved for you, okay? When you solve for y, you're going to want to find your y-intercept and your slope and put those on your graph. Once you do that, you're going to ask yourself, is the line going to be a solid or a dashed line? After that, you're going to shade above or below. So actually, there's 4 steps to doing these problems. One of them may or may not be required. So step number 1, and I'll write them down for you guys. Step number 1 is going to be solve for y, if needed. Step 2, graph your y-intercept and your slope value. Okay. Step 3, dashed or solid line. Step 4, shade above or below. Okay. So if you want some steps, here you go. So steps to graphing inequalities. Steps to graphing inequalities. So we have step number 1. Solve for y. And I'm going to put right here, this is optional step, right? Because it may already be solved for y, so you may not need to do that step. And step 2, y-intercept and slope. Okay, so the B and the M, where you begin and then you move. You're going to get those things marked up. Okay, once you get those 2 points, so I'm going to put that right here. These are 2 points on the graph. Just to remind you, like that's what you're doing. You're putting the 2 points that you need to graph. All right? Step 3. Either dashed or solid line. And then step 4, shade or shade in. Those are your 4 steps that you have to do, or 3. Okay, the first couple of examples we're just going to do 3. And then the last ones we're going to do 4. All right, so these are the things you need to do. So let's do some examples. By the way, these problems don't take very long. Yeah. So these problems don't take very long. If they're already set up for you, they're pretty fast. Okay. So here we go. Let's do example number 1. I'm just going to put graph. So here's the first one. Y is less than 1/5 x minus 3. Okay, so of course you're going to need a grid. So they already give it to you in your homework. Unfortunately for notes, we do not have them. Okay, so I'm just going to make one here. Just give me a second while I just put all the tick marks in here. So notice how this one is already solved for y, okay? This one is already solved for y. So for us, all we have to do is step 2 now. Okay, we already did step 1, or we didn't do it, but it was done for us. Step 1 basically says solve for y. There it is. It's already done. Step 2, put my points for the y-intercept and for the slope. So according to this, the y-intercept starts at -3, so I'm going to put a point right there. And then according to my slope, it's 1/5. Since it's positive, it's up 1, 5 over. So up 1, 5 over, that's right here. Okay? Now, I have to figure out whether this is a dashed or a solid line. Is it dashed or solid? dashed, right? It says less than, not or equal to, just less than. So I'm going to do a dashed line, okay? It doesn't have to be perfect. Just make sure it passes through those points. And then it says the last step is to shade above or below it. Well, this says less than, so is that above or below? Below, so I'm just going to basically color it in, okay? So that's all I'm going to do is just color in this thing below. And that is my answer. I don't need to say like, okay, x equals this or anything like that. The picture is your solution. So there you go. I'm done with this problem. It doesn't take very long. Okay, right now I'm explaining it, so it took me about a minute or two. But if I'm not talking to anybody, I can get this done in about 10 seconds. Okay, it does not take very long at all. Let's do one more here. Let's see. We'll try this one right here. So let's try y greater than or equal to 2x minus 1. So I'm going to draw another chart, or another coordinate plane, sorry, because I'm going to need it. And thankfully on your homework it'll already be done, it'll be there, so you don't have to worry about doing this. Where do I begin? Since it's already solved for y? A negative 1. What do I do from there? Alright, so slope is positive 2, go up to right 1. So up to right 1, so I'm right here. Okay, solid or dashed? It's a solid line because it says greater than or equal to, right? As long as it says or equal to. So there's a nice solid line. And then shading above or below? Above. And we know that because it says what? Yeah, greater than or equal to, right? Remember, greater, that means you look up to them, up, right? Up. So above this line. So when you color it, guys, make sure that you color it all in, okay? Whatever the grid is that they give you, fill it in. Just realized I went over. Give me a second. Try not to go over the line because then that actually means it's a wrong answer. So we're trying to make sure we stay on the correct side. Just color it all in and then you're done, okay? So there you go. So the only difference is for the problems that you guys are going to have is the first 4, the ones in the very front, these are all solved for y. Then you turn them over and they're not solved for y, okay? So we'll do one where it's not solved for y, and then I'm going to show you guys the very last type of problems, the last 4, which are pretty easy. But I'm going to do one example of them where it's not solved. We'll go through the process and solve, and then we'll graph. Okay, but before I do that, any questions on these? I mean, do you think these are kind of manageable, easy, hopefully? All right? Just draw the line, dash your solid, and color it in either above or below. Okay? So let's go to example number 2. I'm going to graph, but we're only going to do one of these because you guys, we've already done 2 where they're solved for y. So we're just going to do one where we have to kind of solve one of these. Let's pick, picking one from your homework here. Let's try 6x minus 5y is greater than or equal to negative 25. By the way, sometimes people ask me, like, what if I run out of space? Can I draw more stuff? Yeah, it's not illegal to draw more to your graph. If you have to extend the line a little bit, go ahead and extend it. It's not a big deal. But sometimes people will worry, like, man, I ran out. I must have done something wrong. Like, no, sometimes it's just they don't want to give you a grid that's 20 by 20, all over the place. So sometimes you got to draw a little bit extra yourself. So here we have an equation, 6x minus 5y is greater than or equal to negative 25. So I'm going to have to solve for y. So we'll get the 6x first. Move it over. So I get negative 5y is greater than or equal to negative 6x minus 25. And then I have to divide everything by negative 5, right? So I divide by negative 5. I divide by negative 5. Divide this by negative 5. I'm dividing everything by a negative. What am I supposed to do? Make things positive. What else, though? Yeah, flip that symbol, right? Instead of greater than or equal to, it should be less than or equal to, right? So y is less than or equal to 6/5 x plus 5. Now notice, this thing says 6/5 x plus 5. Okay? Now I'm going to do something that most people would kind of freak out. They're like, wait a minute, I don't have enough room. I'm going to draw a normal looking graph for us. Okay? Not a huge grid, because this grid would have to be 11 units high. Okay? Let me show you how to deal with it when... hold on, let me move this. Let me move this a little bit higher here. When you run out of space, there's an option that you can do. Okay, I'm going to try to give us a decent sized graph. Okay, so that you think we do have enough space, but you'll find out that we don't. And then what do we do in that case? So let me go ahead and get this set up here. And I mean, you can always draw more, but notice I don't have a lot of space to go up anymore, right? I'm going to run into the equation. Now, it doesn't mean you can't. You can keep going. I've seen some people go through the equation and draw it like way up, and that's okay. So, all right, I have my, what is this, 6 by 6 graph, okay? So 6 by 6, 6 in every direction. So I'm supposed to start at 5, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I'm right here. And then from there, I'm supposed to go up 6 and 5 over. Well, I can go 5 over, right? But I can't go up 6. I'm kind of running out of room. Now, of course, I can draw more, right? But here, I'm supposed to go up and to the right to get my next point, correct? Up and to the right. But I run out of room. So if you run out of room, you could also, instead of drawing extra, do the opposite directions, both directions. So instead of up, go down. Instead of right, go left. Okay? So if you run out of room, so here for the slope, I'm supposed to go up, then right. Whoops. Up, then right. That's what I'm supposed to do for my slope. Up, then right. But I'm going to run out of room. I'm going to put right here, no room. Then go down, then left. And right now we'll double check just to make sure I didn't break any rules. So let's see. Instead of up 6, right 5, I'm going to go down 6, left 5. So down 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Left 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to put a dot right here. Okay? Now just to check, I'm going to erase this though. From the left point to the right point, is that a slope of 6 over 5? Let's see. I got to go 6 up. 1, 2, 3, well, here you go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yep. And is it 5 over? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it is 6 over 5. Okay? My slope is right. I just kind of went completely opposite. Right? Completely opposite. Why did I go completely opposite? I ran out of room. On my picture, there was no room to fit 6 up and 5 over to the right. So just go in the opposite directions. Okay, both of them. Don't go right, but you said, I'm going to go down, but then right. No. Down and then left. Okay? If it would have been a negative slope and you were going down, then right, then go up, then left. Okay? So when you run out of room, you go the opposite directions. Okay? Now, is this going to be a solid or a dashed line? Solid line. And then, am I shading above or below? Below. So let me color all this stuff in. Okay? So as best you can, just color it all in. Remember, the main thing is you don't want to go on the other side of that line that you drew. But aside from that, just color all the rest in. So that's kind of where like a nice color pencil or an actual marker would help. I'm using a smaller marker here. I could use a bigger head for it, but that's okay. Okay, so this is what we're basically looking at. And yes, it can sometimes take a little while to color it in. Okay, are we okay with that? So this one took us 4 steps, right? If I can go back up really quick. I have the original equation. I solve for y. I wanted to do this problem because I wanted to remind you about the negatives, right? It kind of flip things around sometimes. But it does flip the symbol. We get y less than or equal to 6 over 5x plus 5. Then we start with our graphing. We start at 5. We realize my slope is out of space. So what do? If I have no room, you do the opposite. Okay? So I'm just going to put right here opposites. Okay? You're going to want to do the opposite. So instead of up, you go down. Instead of right, you'll go left. Okay? And that'll allow you to fit the graph inside a pre-drawn graph. Okay? And then from there, just connect your dots based on the line type and shade in the correct direction. Right? Now, there is one more thing they're going to want you guys to do for today's homework. And this one's kind of on the easy side. Okay? It's not graphing. It's kind of nice. But they just basically want you guys to check something. This is going to be example number 3. Is the point let me see what point they give us here. Is the point -1, 4 a solution to the inequality? So they're saying, we have a point. We want you to tell us if it's an answer. Now they're going to give you an equation. Let me pick one here. Now the equation might be a normal looking equation, or it might have absolute values, like this one's going to have an absolute value. But it won't be anything worse than this. Either a normal looking inequality or one with an absolute value. So I'm doing one with an absolute value for you. So they just say, is that point a solution to that inequality? So guys, all you have to do is plug in the point. Okay? This is your x, this is your y. So I'm going to write 4 less than the absolute value of -1 plus 3 minus 5. Now -1 plus 3, that's a 2. So 4 is less than the absolute value of 2 minus 5. The absolute value of 2, that's 2. And 2 minus 5 is -3. Is it true that 4 is less than -3? No, right? So this is false. Okay? This part right here is false. So I'm just going to put right here, -1, 4 is not a solution. If you get a true statement, then you say that it is a solution. So you'll write yes. So you can put yes or no if you want. Okay? I'm just putting right here that it's a false statement, so it's not a solution. But you can write yes or no. Okay? You don't have to write a big old sentence or anything like that. But that's what you have to do at the very end.